Welcome to the Chronically Will podcast, where we have real conversations with community that need to be heard. On today's episode, I have the honor of speaking with Bernetta. Bernetta, I do see how much you're involved in like the group and online spaces, and it just shows and shares that you're someone that everyone should get to know because in this community that we're building, like this family circle, like all of us, all of our representation matters. Again, I thank you for joining me on this journey. Could you please give our audience a summary of who you are?
First of all, thank you for having me on the Chronically Well podcast. And sure, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am Bernetta, and I currently live in the Tampa Bay area, originally from Chicago. I am a wife of 21 years, mom of 3. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 10 years ago. What is this? February, so around February, around 10 years ago this year. I am an Alabama State graduate with my degree in marketing. Over the years, I've been a content creator for about 15 years. I work with brands such as Disney, Steve Harvey, Home Depot, many brands. Currently a marketing strategist with my husband and our real estate company. I'm a 3-time author on Amazon. And I have a nonprofit called the Knighten Project, where we provide brand new suitcases to teens aging out of foster care. And we also fill those suitcases with everyday essentials as they transition into adulthood. Also a certified life coach. And that's enough for right now.
Look, you said it's enough for right now, but it's never enough because all of these jewels you just gave, you're like an octopus. Like, if anyone's in need of something, I'm sure you have the resources and you can guide them to getting it. Right?
Just try to be a resource. If I don't have it, I will try to find it.
Look, we grew up in an era where there was it Spray 9 cleaner? Do you remember that? Spray 9 cleaner, all purpose. You can use it like that. Yeah, you're all purpose. Look, you mentioned like your main thing, like you work in marketing, right? You're a graduate of the Alabama State University.
In Montgomery, Alabama.
Mm-hmm. I have a few good friends that are graduates of there. So you've traveled.
Yeah.
All of like you're from Chicago.
Correct.
You went to school in Alabama.
Correct. Which was a culture shock. Coming from Chicago at 17, the big city, down to country Alabama. And then after college, I moved to Atlanta.
How long were you in Atlanta?
17 years.
17 years. You spent many lifetimes in different spaces. Because 17, yeah, that's like your coming of age story, right?
Yeah, I feel that's where I grew into my womanhood in Atlanta. Chicago raised me, but Atlanta kind of raised me as well. And that's where I met my husband. That's where I had all my children. And then we moved to Tampa 2016.
So, hold on. You moved to Tampa in 2016. You were diagnosed in 2015. So it was like everything was fairly new. Like so many different things were occurring at that time.
It was a big deal.
Right. Now, upon your diagnosis of type 1 diabetes a decade ago, do you have anything particularly that you believe may have pushed that forward?
So you asked me, do I know like what could have caused my diagnosis?
Not what could have caused it, like if anything was occurring then, like, because for most people it's either a sickness, ailment, or some kind of traumatic experience.
No, at the time, I mean, just stress of living. My kids were younger than, of course, 10 years ago. Wanting a new job, trying to buy a house at that time. So I just think stress of living, nothing major that I could think of like that was the catalyst. I mean, even to this day, I still really don't know. When I was diagnosed, I was 38. And, I just really don't know. 10 years later, I'm still like, what happened?
Still trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you been able to have conversations with other people that were diagnosed as adults?
I've never had the conversation with adults of why when they were diagnosed as adults and why. I know one of the endocrinologists that I've had diagnosed me with LADA. I guess it's like type 1.5, because I did get it so late. But no, I really haven't had that conversation with many adults that got it as adults.
Right. So, I mean, what I consider LADA is really like just them saying to an adult because it was typically titled juvenile diabetes in the past. So, latent autoimmune diabetes of adults, LADA 1.5, which is really just type 1, but a slower onset. So, it's typically like it's almost like going through an extended honeymoon for some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So let me let you know in this space, you get to speak to someone else who was diagnosed as an adult. I was diagnosed as an adult in 2003. Wow, I'm coming up on 22 years. March 10th, 2003. I was 20 years old when I was diagnosed.
okay.
Yeah. So I
Do
do
you?
know that.
What was your story with? What was going on with you?
It took me years before I was able to take a dive into like all of that because when you diagnose, just that diagnosis is traumatic.
Yeah.
And when your blood sugars are elevated for so long, like it affects your memory and your
Mm.
focus. So I did find, like, when I look back on it, there was a lot of trauma that was ensuing. Like, I remember my parents were going through separation and things at that time. Um, we lost our home. I was young, helping take care of my younger brother who was still in school. Like it was just my grandmom had just got diagnosed with brain cancer and passed shortly after that. Like it was a lot of trauma that was going on. So even though we know that we already have these auto antibodies, even though we don't find out till after, uh, all it does is take a trigger to ignite them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's not a wow. It's life happens, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to like.
We take
Yeah.
care of
I
what we
mean,
can.
well, you're still here 20 years later.
Right, right. And you made it to a decade with diabetes. Look,
Yeah.
you
I
you
know.
you just gave that slump down like, yes, I made it. It was a struggle, it was a fight, it's continuing, it's an onslaught, all of those things. It is.
It's a daily thing, and I still pray. I'm a woman of faith, so I'm still praying for a cure. I'm still praying to be healed every day. I still speak that I am healed, type 1 diabetes, but in the midst, we have to take care of ourselves. It's something that we deal with just every day, but every minute. You know what I mean? Like we're worried about our spikes, what we got to eat, what we got to drink. So it's like a minute by minute thing.
Right. Type 1 diabetes in general takes no breaks,
Yeah.
none at all. Even when we sleep, that's like the most time when we really need someone to help us take care of it because everyone that I know that has lived with type 1 diabetes for some time have woken up in the middle of the night shaking, like needing something, like, and it's like we have this superpower in us because when we look at other people, we're like, there's no way they could do this. There's no way they could do this. But like you said, gotta believe.
Yeah. And when I was initially diagnosed, that was something that I think scared me that I had to get used to is the sleeping part and how you can go low at night. And in the beginning, I didn't have a CGM. It was just, me doing pricking my finger on the machine, but I knew that you can go low. And I would tell my husband early on, like, check on me in the middle of the night, check on me because, if you go low, you could die, and if you don't wake up. So it was like, just check on me because I don't, I'm new to this. And like you say, I've woken up low, and now I do have a CGM, so it'll go off in the middle of the night if I get too low. But before, it was just me feeling a certain way, like you say, sweating, cold, and then you can't move. Sometimes you get so low, you can't move. So it's like, I'm grateful to have him. Like, can you go get me some grapes? Can you go get me something to drink real quick?
Right. I call that the stuck position. When you're so low, your mind freezes, your body freezes. You internally, you're telling yourself, I need to do this. I have to do that. But you truly can't. And when you try to present that to someone and explain it to them, they're like, if you're about to die, you can't do this. You can, like, you don't live this life. You really don't know what's going on internally here. It's not just physical, it's mental, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's like we're just stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel as though I need like a buzzer to press. Like the game shows growing up, like on Nickelodeon and stuff, like press the button and the buzzer, and my wife and my kids and my dog, everybody comes and it's like, I got
Well,
you.
now I just have to have stuff on my nightstand, just in case, whether it's the glucose tablets or, I don't know. Recently, I had brought some honey because I didn't want to keep taking those glucose tablets. So I had put some honey on my nightstand. So if I go though, I could just put some on my finger and give me a spike real quick. But basically, yeah, try to have something on my nightstand. So because I actually don't like having my husband wake up. Like, I feel bad. I feel guilty. Yes, he is very supportive, but I still feel bad when my CGM goes off in the middle of the night, waking everybody up.
I understand that. I feel that way also because like my wife works in a hospital, like she's a surgical assistant, and I know like sometimes she's like on call and different things, and I do think about that, but at the same time, I know that she'll be like, I need you alive.
Yeah.
These kids need you alive. We need, like, if your alarm goes off, it goes off, you know? And I'm sure your husband feels the same way. Like if it goes off, it goes off. It's helping you. It's aiding us.
Yeah. So usually he's like, and I try to grab it real quick, to turn it off. But he's usually like, are you low or are you high? And if I'm low, it's like, what do you need? And if I feel like I can, I'm like, I'll get it. Don't worry, But he'll be like, no, I'll get it. What do you want? Grapes? What do you want? And he'll get it for me. So I'm grateful for that.
Yes, yes. Thank you to your Mr. I don't know his name, but thank you to him for being that knight in shining armor continuously, even over the years. How long you been married? 21 years?
It's 21.
21 years, blackjack. Look, right. So after all these years, he's still there, still ready to pick you up and like we got this, babe. Like, it's light work, right?
I must admit, through the 10 years of having it, he's been my number one supporter.
That's great. That's amazing. That's amazing because we do support each other.
Yeah.
We do. We do. Yeah. Have you ever found yourself in a position where, let's say, you're in the kitchen and your blood sugar drops real low and your husband's like, are you okay? And you like just standing there and you can't explain anything to him?
Thankfully, I have not been in that kind of situation where I'm just where it's dropping. I can't. But as I start to feel it, then I tell him, I think my blood is dropping. My blood is dropping. And I'm going to need something right now. Like it happened in church a couple times where my blood was dropping and he had to go, ask an usher, like my wife blood dropping, can you give her some juice? So I haven't ever got that low where I'm like, but I can, as I feel it, then I'm like, look, I'm going low. I can tell I'm going low. I'm going to need something.
All right. And how long have you been using a CGM? Probably longer than me.
Probably about 5 years now. Initially, when I first started using the CGM, the Freestyle Libre 2, because I was still is a content creator online. I was just talking about when I first got diagnosed with diabetes, I didn't tell anybody for 3 years, as far as my community, like online. And then I started to share after 3 years. I'm like, you know what? I have this disease. It is what it is. I'm a content creator. Because, I wouldn't take pictures showing my sensor and all that. But I'm like, it is what it is. I live this life. I got to take insulin to be alive. So I'm going to share. And when I started sharing online, Abbott Freestyle Libre reached out to me. And when I say share, at that time, I was wearing an Omnipod, but not a CGM. And Abbott Freestyle Libre had reached out to me to, connect and collaborate. So I became an ambassador for them for like 2.5, maybe 3 years. And that's how I started wearing the CGM.
By just showing up and showing face.
Yeah. And so they sent me free. They paid me to promote online, like Instagram posts and blog posts. They paid me a nice little, every time I posted, but then they also supplied me free Libres for 3 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Look, let me take that note down.
Yeah, because that's how I started wearing it.
Look, because I've had so many meetings behind closed doors with all these different companies and whatnot. Let me see how I can give me some supplies.
Yeah, you might. Reach out to them and, our contract ended. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to pay for this now. But it was a blessing. It was a real blessing.
Right. Other than Abbott Freestyle Libre, have you done any other content with like you being a type 1 diabetic?
A year ago, I did a campaign through Best Buy, and that was with the Dexcom 7. It was coming out. Mm-hmm. They had a contract where Dexcom was now going to be sold at Best Buy. And so, they sent me a 30-day supply to promote it. So that was my first time wearing Dexcom, and I loved it. Actually, I really loved it, but it was more expensive than my Freestyle Libre. And so I'm like, I'm going to just keep my Freestyle Libre. But I really like the Dexcom, and that's the only other collaboration through being a diabetic.
I didn't even know that Best Buy had sold them because I'm like, it's a medical device. How that?
Right. But you did, in order to get the Dexcom, you had to do like a telehealth appointment with one of their doctors and answer a few questions.
I'm gonna have to look into that also. Look, you dropping some jewels on me. Because people are always like, asking me, like, how do you get involved in this and that? I'm like, I just show up. Like, I show up, I reach out to people. Like, those are the things I do. Like, by profession, over the last decade plus, I was a media literacy educator. So I taught every grade level, even did professional development courses in media literacy and sharing with people how to like not only create content, but be the content. How you can be the influence and the impact also. And branding, all of those things. Like yourself as a marketing genius.
Now I'm on this email list for like focus groups, and sometimes they send me emails for diabetic, focus groups, but I haven't been picked for one. I don't know why, but I answer honestly all the time, but I haven't been picked for a focus group with diabetes, but I try.
You're out there, you ready to be seen, right?
Well, to be honest, I have battled with that. Like, yes, I share my story because it is my story and I tell my truth, but I battle sometimes with, do I really want to be out there all the time, like an advocate for type 1 or, so I go back and forth. I feel if I wanted to, I could. I just haven't made that leap. Like I have my story on my YouTube page. Like I have a type 1 diabetes playlist where I talk about my story, a video on me, with the Freestyle Libre and but it's like, how further do I want to go? Do I want to be a diabetes influencer or do I not? So
I understand.
Yeah,
I often get people asking me to do certain things and I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do. Like the only thing I'm trying to do truly is I'm trying to help people the way that I was not helped early on. Like going 10, 15 plus years without seeing another type 1 of color. Like I can't, like my first time meeting another type 1 of color probably was just like a few years ago. like
Really?
in person, like
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago,
And
like
where do you?
social, right outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
And I've met people. I met a guy last week in Walmart, and he saw my hoodie and was like, "Yo, you make those?" And then he looked at the front. He's like, "That's your podcast?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Yo, I need one of them." I said, "Are you a type 1 diabetic?" He said, "Yeah." And we exchanged numbers and whatnot. And later on, I had texted him just to give an introduction to who I was. We were both in Walmart with our kids or with, and also he was like, "Yo," he was like, "That was God." I said, "It's always God." And he's like, "Yo, I was diagnosed 10 years ago, and you're the first black person I've met with type 1 diabetes." And I said, "Brother, I believe you."
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't think that we existed.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was diagnosed, I lived in Atlanta, and I would say I didn't meet people that had type 1 because I wasn't sharing it. I wasn't talking to anybody about it. I told maybe my circle of 5 for the first year, just because, that first, when you're diagnosed, you going through, I went through depression. I was trying to heal myself. I didn't want to take my insulin. I didn't want to eat because I didn't want to take insulin. And I just wasn't talking to people. So then when I moved to Tampa, as I started to share more, and then especially if you're out wearing an Omnipod, people are asking, I started to meet more people with type 1. And my daughter's best friend's father actually has type 1. So, but he's had it since birth. And I've gotten, good doctor recommendations from him and a lot of, information from him. But like I said, he's had it since birth.
Yeah, I remember like my endocrinologist, they also were like, "Yeah, it's rare to find like a person of color with type 1 around here." And I was like, "Understood."
Yeah.
Because I mean, I didn't think, but I do meet a lot of people from the Atlanta area that are type 1. Um, and I don't know if because I don't know, it's like this big metropolitan area. I mean, but Philadelphia is also. But walking around, you won't see
Yeah.
black people, like people that look like us, like sharing and showing like
Yeah, and it's like,
symptoms
how
and
do you know?
cause.
Like most times
Right.
I meet them because they start the conversation because they
Mhm.
see, the freestyle Libre. But
I
other than
can
that, how would you know?
right, I can say over the last probably 5, 6 years out in public, I've met hundreds. And I don't know if it's because of now, like with continuous glucose monitors becoming more polarized and popular. That's
Yeah,
why I see them. Because I mean, before the pandemic, you didn't see these things out in public.
yeah, yeah. Like even initially with me, like, covering it up or not covering up to keep it from falling off, but covering up for people don't see it. But now it's just like, hey, I use this to live, so you're gonna see it. It is what it
Right.
is.
Right. Just like you said, other than like a select group of people, like a handful of
Mhm.
people, no one even knew you had type 1.
Right,
And
right.
that goes hand in hand, like with most people that look like us. Because we've since the beginning of time, we've had to fight and fight and fight some more. So certain things do get put on the back burner. Um, so we don't even like delve into them like, oh yeah, maybe I should tell my employer that I have diabetes. We don't even think about those things because it's ours, right? It belongs to
Yeah,
us. And
yeah,
like we're the ones who should be taking care of this.
yeah.
And
I
I
have
still
something to
think,
say about that too.
go ahead.
When I was first diagnosed, I was working a job where I had quit my other job to follow like this opportunity, and I happened to be in this opportunity while I got diagnosed. And so while I was in the opportunity and I'm diagnosed, depression set in. I was going through where I was using the bathroom 3 or 4 times an hour. My eyes were blurry, and just dealing with the symptoms. And that's why I went to the doctor, because I was having all these symptoms. And then I got diagnosed. But then I'm going through depression. I'm dealing with this, and so I end up losing that job. I did. I think I did tell them. I did tell them. And of course, I'm still expected to work, but I was also mentally going through, and wasn't doing my best at my job. And I eventually lost that job. And so the next time I started working, I did not tell my employer. I did not bring it up at all. And I would, at that time, I wasn't on a CGM, but I was on an Omnipod, and I would hide it. I would never wear anything with my arms out. I put it on my stomach until one day somebody did see it. And then I told them what it was. And then I didn't bring it up anymore. But from then on, I just did not bring it up. Even another job I had after that, I just didn't bring it up. If they found out, they found out, but I just didn't bring it up.
I mean, it was yours.
Yeah.
It's like when someone goes to the doctor for sickness, any other ailment, like you don't go home and tell everyone what it was. Like you don't go to work and be like, yeah, that whatever I had was crazy and it's going to stay with me forever. Like, nah,
Yeah.
but I do. We both understand today the significance of that. I mean, you were early on in your diagnosis. You were still learning it, so it was like it may have been a teachable moment, but at the same time, you had to learn you first
Yeah.
before you were able to even tell or share with anybody else what it is, because you didn't even know what it was. Like type 1 diabetes, yeah, I got it. They just told me that, and it can be detrimental to my health, and all of these complications can occur. But come on now, sister, you're a Black woman in America. Ain't no struggle, ain't no fight you ain't been through that you haven't been able to dig from beneath the soil and rise above the earth with. Like, there's nothing that diabetes wasn't going to stop you. It wasn't, right?
It hasn't so far.
Did you ever go through any of the stages of where you thought that maybe you did something that brought this on to yourself? Like,
yeah, I mean, I definitely went through the why me, even like from the spiritual aspect, like, did I do something, God, that I was supposed to do? And then, from the health aspects, you watching all these videos and documentaries, like, man, was I eating too much dairy? Because, dairy is a trigger, just going down a rabbit hole of what could I have been doing? What could I have been eating? What could I have been doing spiritually to do this? So, yeah, I have been down the rabbit hole of why me.
it's crazy. I was just thinking earlier about, I wanted to have a conversation with some people, and I'm going to have it here with you about when diagnosed with this new chronic health condition. Like, first off, we should have mental health therapists that are aligned with our physical health coaches and doctors to aid us in knowing what type 1 diabetes is, so that from day one, if you know from day one that this affects infants, like newborns, and that a new baby brought into this world is a true gift, a true value, the true prize, a gem. Like, there's nothing wrong with this child at all. That's the equivalent of yourself also. Like, if a newborn baby can get type 1 diabetes, no one gave it to this child. Nothing this child did brought it on. This child didn't have a lack of vitamin D and iron deficiency and all those things. So that would let a person know, an adult at 38 years old, know that nothing you did brought this on also. Like, that needs to be there.
I definitely agree that when you are diagnosed as an adult, you definitely need a therapist. You definitely need someone to talk to, because your life changes forever, and you're not really ready. You're not ready. You're not ready for the shift. At 38, I'm a grown woman. I'm a mom. I'm into my marriage. I'm raising kids. I'm living life. And now I got to take insulin with every meal. Now I got to watch what I eat every single time. Now when I go to sleep, I got to pay attention in every little thing. My feelings, if I'm too high, I'm going to do this. If I'm too low, if I'm going on a walk, make sure I'm going to have insulin in case, so the complications, like you said, that you have to deal with. Going to new doctors, now I go to an eye doctor every 6 months, and then your podiatrist, your this, your that, the medical bills. Your life changes, and mentally, that's why they say so many type 1 get depressed, because it's life changing, and you have to deal with it all the time. So when you're diagnosed, I agree, you need somebody to sit down and say, this is what you can expect. Not just now you're type 1, go get your insulin, but now you're type 1, this is what could happen. This is what you might have to deal with, and we're here for you.
Right. And those, when you're diagnosed, your blood sugars are so high, and no one tells you that, oh, you've been this emotional wreck because of these high blood sugars. No one says that at all. But at the same time, if an infant's diagnosed, you're like, oh, that's why they've been kicking and screaming and fussy, and it's the same.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure at 20 years old, I was kicking and fussy. And, and at 38, you were too. Your husband's probably looking like,
So when I was diagnosed, like, I knew something was wrong, because again, I would be driving and I couldn't see in front of me, and I'm hitting my eyes like, why are my eyes blurry? I'm just having all these different symptoms. And so of course I went to WebMD, and diabetes came up. And then when I went to my doctor for my physical, I asked them, can you test me for diabetes? Because based on my symptoms, this is what's coming up. But of course, type 2 came up. And then when they tested me, all my numbers, because I always get my physicals every year, and my numbers are always in range, but my blood glucose was like in the 300s. And so the doctor was like, oh, this must be a fluke, because all your other numbers are in range, and just this. So let's do it again. And they tested me again, still in the high 3s. And she was like, long story short, they diagnosed me with type 2 first, because that's just what they assumed, me being as old as I was. And they gave me metformin, and taught me how to gave me the pills first. And I was having a stomach ache, and I came back, my blood was still high. And so then they taught me how to inject myself with insulin, still saying I have type 2, and came back, blood still high. And then they finally did a C-peptide test, and they were like, you have type 1. And then that's when, but I still didn't get education on the difference. That was me having to go research myself. What is the difference? And me learning, self-educating myself. It was more with them. You're type 1 now, go see this endocrinologist. Okay, this is how you count carbs. There you go.
Right. We need advocates in the hospital that can say, even if an adult is diagnosed, talk to them the same way you would talk to the parent of a child that's diagnosed. Because, the parents of these children that are diagnosed today, they get everything. And they deserve it. They deserve all that knowledge, that respect, to give them knowledge so that they can learn it, that they are capable, and make sure that they're capable of understanding it. They also do that with the parents. But as an adult, they don't give you any. They're like, take this insulin. If your blood sugar is this high, take this amount, give you a sliding scale. They don't tell you, there's going to be a risk of you going low. You're going to find out that you're going to go low when you go low. That's when you're going to find out.
Yeah, I think it just seems like what's most important to them is that A1C, versus anything else. So it's like you really got to take your health into your own hands. It's sad, but, we want to live, so we got to do it.
Right. It's the truth. And you would think that since a lot of, most medical professionals, they have a strong fear of, us going low, like the hypoglycemia, having severe lows, you would think that they would reiterate that or share that with us upon diagnosis. You taking all this insulin right now, you're taking it all right now, but eventually your blood sugar is going to level out, because it's been high in the 300, 400, 500s for so long. Eventually it's going to level out, and this insulin is going to make your blood sugar drop low. And there's nothing you did for that to occur. They never say that. They never say there's nothing you did that made that occur. It's always, did you do something different? What happened on this day? But
Yeah,
no,
it's like
there's
trial and
nothing.
error for us too, like with the insulin, even though insulin is no joke. Like I said, if you give yourself too much, you can go low and unfortunately die. If you don't take enough, you can be high. Um, and one thing, like with the going low, giving yourself too much, like when I take my Traceva at night, sometimes I might forget or I don't remember if I took it, and I take like 20 units at night. So sometimes I have sat there and like, did I give myself 20 units?
I
I
remember
don't
those
know.
days.
So what I do when I do that, I just don't take it because I'd rather not take it and give myself an extra 20. You know what I'm saying? And know that that's going to drop me or whatever could happen if I'm now take 40 when I normally take 20. So those nights I just say, you know what, I'm gonna just have to deal with the consequences of maybe waking up high, but I don't want to deal with the consequences of doubling up that insulin, you know. So
Yeah, I've heard people say that they do things such as like they'll put a piece of tape around like the
mhm.
insulin cap and that'll let them know that they took it, or they'll take a marker and just like make a mark on there and it lets them know that they took it already.
Yeah, I need
So
to do something. When I do it, I'm like, I need to do something, but then I don't. But I do need to do something to remind because it's happened a few times where I like, did I take it? I can't remember because I take both at night. Like if I'm high, then I'll take my fast acting too before I go. So I just say, you know what? I'm not gonna take another 20 units. I'm not even gonna play with it. So, but I do need a system.
it's the mind of a person with insulin dependence, with type 1 diabetes. Our mind is already going through so many other things like that mental roller coaster and everything. So when we think about adding something else onto it, you're like, uh, like, do I really want to add on? Like now I gotta jot down how much insulin I took and what time I took it. Like it seems so simple to
You're
someone
on
not living with it.
a pump. So, you have your phone, you can program and it's always giving you insulin. But for me, where's my pen at? That takes insulin injections. Like I said, every time I leave the house, it's like outside of you having your license and, your wallet, your
Hmm.
phone, I got to make sure I got my insulin. Like, like every time I leave, I got my insulin pen. I got this. Do I have something in my purse in case I go low? You know, so it's just always that's my checklist: my keys, my wallet, my phone, my insulin, a snack. And you gotta think about that all the time. And then I walk every day. I walk in the morning and I walk at night. And when I walk, I gotta check my blood before I walk to make sure I'm not gonna go low while
Hmm.
I'm 45 minutes away from my house. So it's like it's just ingrained now in our day to day life.
Yeah. It truly is ingrained. It's second nature. Um, but something that's, even though they say we must manage our diabetes first before we do
Mm-hmm.
anything else, you and I both know that there's something that goes ahead of our diabetes and will forever be ahead of our diabetes. Raising a family, having children. You have three, I have three. My kids are 16, 14, and my youngest just turned 11 on Thursday. Like,
Uh-huh. Our
like,
kids are close in age. I have an 11-year-old turning 12 tomorrow, but I have a 17, 19-year-old as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Well, happy birthday to your youngest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we know, even though we have diabetes,
Let me say this too, because you said what was going on too when you were diagnosed. I had gestational diabetes with my first, well, not my, with my first and my third, not the second. But after the third, when I was diagnosed with the first one, gestational, I did research and I was told that, you have a high probability of getting diabetes later in life if you have gestational diabetes, but it's type 2, not type 1, that's the risk. So after the second one, at the hospital, after I gave birth, while I was still at the hospital, after I gave birth to my youngest, they came in there and checked my blood and it was apparently high and they gave me insulin. I did not want insulin, but I'm still high off whatever, with the kid. And I'm like, okay, but I remember that moment like, I don't want them to give me insulin. Like I have gestational diabetes, but my blood can go down normal, but they gave me insulin. And then He was born in 2013. So 2015 was when I was diagnosed. But I always wonder, like, did they activate something in me? You know what I mean? Like giving me that insulin, because I didn't have to take insulin throughout my whole pregnancy with the 1 and 3, even though I had gestational, it was always diet controlled. But then when after I gave birth, they like injected me with insulin. And I always like, well, was that the trigger? Did that start like something? But yeah. So
I've met many women who got a diagnosis of gestational diabetes towards the end of their pregnancy, like that final trimester. And is that what happened with you? Like,
no, I had it. When you're around like 5 months, I think you have to take that test where you drink that liquid. So,
the glucose
that's when they
tolerance
said I
test.
had it then. That's when. But like I said, both pregnancies, I didn't have to take insulin. It was just diet controlled. But then after I gave birth, they were like, you're still so high, so we need to give you insulin and bring it down. And I didn't want it, but I let them do it to me. And that was like one of my biggest regrets, like letting them give me insulin.
I wouldn't, so knowing the facts of insulin and people, like insulin itself wouldn't trigger an onset of type 1 diabetes, of any diabetes, because everyone takes insulin. Everyone's body uses insulin. It's just ours is genetically made up or modified insulin because we can't produce it. At that time during your pregnancy, at that 5 to 6 months, it showed that your body wasn't giving off enough insulin. And if your body's not giving off enough insulin, then that could lead to many other obstacles with that pregnancy, such as preeclampsia. So many things could have occurred during that pregnancy. Because if they gave you insulin, you were at 300. I mean, maybe it came down to like 150 or so. But if you would have stayed at 300 and not been given that insulin, or even if it can take the matter of just a couple of days of having that high blood sugar can truly harm the baby that's growing within your womb. So my research tells me like they did what they had to do.
Yeah, and like I said, at that time, I had already had the baby. I had given birth when they gave me insulin, but I was just still in the hospital. But yeah, so or I don't know if just having the 2 gestationals triggered it later. I mean, I don't know, but like I said, I know that it is a high propensity to get diabetes later in life if you have gestational, but it was always type 2, said, not type 1.
But I've only recorded with people with type 1 diabetes, and I know that I've had at least a handful of women who had gestational diabetes ahead of their type 1 diagnosis. One lady I recorded with probably about a month or 2 ago, I remember her having it twice as well with 2 of her pregnancies. So, and she's type 1. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I do want to ask, like, since your diagnosis at 38, have you noticed like people who are close to you or around you like treat you a little different at all? Like they're like, well, you used to be able to do this, you used to do that,
No, which is a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Like I said, my husband's my number one supporter, and then of course my mom and my granny. But my best friend, I would have to say, like she was there from the beginning as well. She lives here in Florida too. She's like an hour and a half away, and from the beginning, she has been the one that has sent me things like, she sees some research. She'll send me this. She'll send me this program. She'll send me like this herb or this, so I'm always grateful for her. And she's never said like, you've changed. You can't do this. You can't do this anymore. If anything, she's even asked like, if we together and you go low, like, what should I do? Cause you never told me that, so I've always appreciated her for that. And other friends or casual friends, no, they've never said that. They're supportive as well. Like I am the type of person, if we're out to eat, and I need to take insulin and we're at a restaurant, I'm gonna just give it to myself in front of you because I'm gonna put it in my arm. I have to put it in my stomach. And yeah, well, they're just normal. They treat me normal, which is a blessing.
That shows me that your true friends are family. Like they're family. Like,
now I will say early on, I felt that I didn't tell anybody except, who I thought were my close friend. And they're still my friends. But at the time I got upset because I told them and something had happened to me. I have this disease now and nobody checked on me besides the one best friend. But nobody else who I consider my friends as well checked on me. And I'm like, y'all are my core people and y'all haven't asked me not one time, are you okay? Are you dealing with this? And I told them this maybe after a year and a half. And one person's response was, well, you look so good. You look good. And I'm like, this is the outside. I look good because I take care of myself and exercise and eat good, but I'm still dealing with the disease, and the emotional and the stuff you don't see, the pricks, the scarring, and so that hurt me in the beginning. Like, you're supposed to be my friend and I'm telling you this, and I didn't tell anybody else but you all, and you all don't even check on me. And even after that, they still haven't checked on me. I mean, it's been 10 years.
look, I had people that showed up when I was diagnosed at 20 years young in the hospital that haven't showed up or asked me anything about it since then.
So I guess I look good,
Right.
So, but then I have my husband and I have, my best friend and my mother and my granny and my own kids support, but other than that,
You got your
I guess
circle.
I just look good. So you all right.
But at the same time, if you're out with those people or whatever, they'll look like, oh, you can do that. Like,
yeah, sometimes. Well, now I've had to educate people on type 1 versus type 2, the people that are close to me, but people that maybe casually, I've been out with a couple of people. If you might get a lemonade or something, like, you can drink that, or you can, I'm like, I could do what I want to do. I just need to take my insulin for it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, type 1 and type 2 are two different things, so sometimes that gets irritating, the education, like the education part of when people telling you what you can't do because, oh, you got diabetes? Yes, I have type 1. I don't have type 2. Like, it's different.
It is different. And,
then you got to go into education mode. Or people that have type 2, this is the thing too, people that have type 2 that want to talk to you and tell you everything they're going through. And like you can relate. You can a little bit, but not like just a little bit, but like, you don't relate to what I got to go through, and you can get healed. You can heal yourself of type 2 diabetes. You don't have to have that for. So, yeah, that gets frustrating.
Right. That's what, like, every year there's a situation that goes into the, like, social media space where it's type 1 versus type 2 and there's this bickering, and I never get into it because I'm like, as a person living with type 1 diabetes, I cannot expand my mind to this other form of diabetes right now. Like, I'm focused on this and I'm focused on my well-being. If there comes a time when magically or spiritually or whatever, like, I no longer have to worry about this, then I will move on to the next thing and research and help with that. But right now, like, when they say a type 1 diabetic makes more than 180 extra decisions each day, how can one decide, like, okay, now I'm going to figure out this type 2 thing also? Like, no. We don't have to do that. And we don't have to combine the two.
Yeah, I don't get into online arguments or anything unless I don't get into any argument, but then only time I will like explain or expound is if I make a post and somebody is on my post, but like everybody else, no. And I will say, I wish that media, when they talk about diabetes, that they are specific, and they're never specific. If you ever watch a commercial or anybody ever talk about anything on TV or push anything, and they're talking about, we're doing this for diabetics, or this is for if you have diabetes, it's always type 2 that they're talking about, but they just say diabetes like it's a broad thing. So people that don't have diabetes, if they hear anything about diabetes and you have it, they just assume, oh, you have diabetes, so you can't do this, you can't do this because this is what we hear. But what you're hearing is type 2. They're always talking about type 2, but they never be specific in their ad or in their informational. You know what I mean? Even Halle Berry, she has type 1 diabetes. But she's pushing this product right now that she's been pushing that helps with your memory and menopause, because she's going through menopause. And then now they have a glucose product for your blood glucose. And she said on this Instagram video, she's like, oh my God, I've been taking this glucose, and like my A1C since I've been taking it has went down from this to this. And I'm like, So I wrote in the comments, is this for type 1 diabetics? Can they take this? And so they wrote back, the company said, no, this is for type 2 diabetics. It has been approved for type 2. And I said, well, why is Haley saying, talking about her A1C and promoting when she has type 1? And the people that have type 1 that know she has type 1, if we didn't ask, we just assume because Haley's taking it, we could take it and it can help us, but it's not even created for us. So that's dangerous. No response from them.
Oh, you're not going to get a response on that, because for the last 2 decades, there's been this inner squabble within media and the medical professionals on, do Halle Berry have type 1 diabetes? Because I think she said she was first diagnosed, and it was sometime in the early 90s, like around 91, 92. But then she came out many years later, like 97, 98, where she said that she no longer had to take insulin. And everybody was like, is she type 2? Is she Modi? Lotto? Like, what is going on here? So there's been this big confusion over the years. Like,
yeah. And some people in the comments of my comment had said, I was wondering the same thing. Like, is this for type 1? Because I know, she has type 1 too. And I actually wrote her early in my journey. Of course, she didn't respond, but, I was just asking her because she seemed to be doing so well with it. Like I said, I promise I won't say anything outside the NDA. I just want to talk to somebody that actually has type 1, because you don't really see a lot of Black celebrities either with type 1. But she never responded to that. But I will follow her, because once in a blue moon, she would never say type 1, but she would talk about her A1C. She would talk about her on that keto diet, which is really not good for you long term. And then she'll say, I went to the doctor and I was worried, but my numbers came back great. And I was just like, okay, but she's on her keto diet, and I guess it's working for her.
Right. So again, like with Halle Berry, I'm not sure, but another person in the community, another Black celebrity, Vanessa Williams, Miss America, an actress. So she
has type 1?
Yes, she was diagnosed. Let me remember. She was young when she was diagnosed, very young. She has an actual book that's written by her and her mother that came out just a few years ago, where she actually talks about her diagnosis and how much it's been a struggle over the years. But most people don't know that she has type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, I think, does Damon Dash have type 1?
Yes, he does. Yeah, Damon Dash was diagnosed, I think, at 14. Ghostface Killer for Wu-Tang, the rapper Boosie. I'm trying to think of other famous Black people. That's all I can think of right now. There's a professional football player, Kendall Sims. He used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But yeah, there's a bunch of people that, just like with any chronic health condition, any ailment, less people of color will be talking about it or broadcasting it. I'm not sure what made Dame Dash, like, all of a sudden, like, he just started sharing everything about his diabetes journey. I know previously in his early years, he didn't at all.
But I can see why, like with the industry he was in, and if he was diagnosed at 14 and then he's in a rap game, he's in the media, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's probably not cool to let everybody know I'm dealing with this. I got to give myself insulin. But I probably, as he got older, he's like, you know what? I'm living with this, and it is what it is.
Right. Plus, I mean, in the industry, he was like this mega conglomerate, like this, and had this bravado with him, like ain't
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah. So it was like knowing that you have diabetes, it's almost presented as a weakness to some. You know, Vanessa Williams actually was diagnosed when she was 19, the year before she became Miss America.
I,
Yeah, but literally a few months before.
I learned something new.
Yep. I don't know what she uses, like if she uses a pump or CGM. I've tried asking over the years, but I don't get no replies. Yeah, but there's so many things that are misunderstood about living with type 1 diabetes. Like you said, many people just think of type 2 diabetes when they hear the term diabetes. Many people just think like, oh, she looks good, so her diabetes must be good. You know how many people we see every day across social media feeds and whatnot that look good, that present themselves as being well off as a type 1 diabetic, but internally their organs are shutting down, everything, like things are going awry and complications are ensuing because it's a, like our diagnosis is silent.
Uh-huh.
It's silent. So and to each his own also, like everyone doesn't choose to share. So
Right.
I mean, there's things that about you, things about me that no one will ever know, right?
Right.
Right. But today, what gives you the strength, the courage to be able to share your story?
Well, my children, I want to live for them and be here. Like when I think about them, because emotionally there have been days that I'm like, this is too rough. This is too tough, you know. But I honestly think of like my youngest, because he's like my surprise baby too. And I just want to see him grow. Like my oldest is 19, and I remember when my oldest was born, I'm like, God, let me see him. Let me live to see my son at 5, at 10, at 15, graduate high school. Now he's in college. And so now with the baby, you know, like the same thing when I think about tough days, like, God, I just want to see this young baby grow. And so when I have those hard days, that's just my motivation. Those 3 children.
And that brings me back to what I was saying a little bit ago about even though we have type 1 diabetes, there's something that's always going to be ahead of that.
Oh yeah, the
Like our
family.
children.
Yeah.
Like when you think of 10 years ago, what were your kids? 9, 17, and 2?
So yeah.
Wasn't nothing going ahead of that. Like you had a baby, really. You had kids in elementary school. Like you had to keep on moving, keep everything in rotation.
Even when I was diagnosed, like I didn't even tell them for a while because you literally, you know, you're dealing with this new thing. And so my doctor at the time, I guess she could tell something was going on with me. And she was like, do your kids know? And I'm like, no. And she was like, you need to tell them. That's going to make you feel better. I could tell you're stressed out. I could tell, you know, you're hiding or holding stuff in. You need to tell your kids. And I was going in a room, pricking my finger in the bathroom. I was going, giving myself the medicine. But once I told my kids, even though they may have not understood at 7 and 9, but now mommy has to check her blood sugar. Mommy has to do this. And that was a weight lifted off of me, you know, that was a weight. So now, you know, for the last 10 years, they know if mommy's not feeling well, they know, go get my insulin. It's just a part of their life now. But it was so much easier when I told my children.
Right. Now your whole circle knows.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
told them right after that meeting, so they were still 7 and 9. Like, I think I didn't tell them maybe for a couple of months, but once I did tell them, that was an ease off of me as well. Because it was like you living in your own house and you still hiding,
And you the big one in the house. Yeah,
Right.
I understand that wholeheartedly. Because we see often like people talking about how they're dealing with diabetes, burnout. I mean, which is real, but at the same time, we a lot of the younger crowd, like the younger audience on social media, like you'll see them talking about burnout and how they're going through this. They don't know how they're going to make it to the next day, the next step. Um, Again, that whole mental health therapies, psychological trauma that they're ensuing or going through, living with type 1 diabetes also. But at the same time, I'm always like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I raised 3 kids. I went to school, worked, went to school. My wife worked, went to school. Like, I remember, like, I was out in the community, had many different uh, community groups, nonprofits that I ran, highly involved in every aspect of my children's growth and education. Like, I think about all of those things when people were always complaining about, like, just diabetes. And I'm like, Bernetta, there was a time for me and you where diabetes was like fourth or fifth down the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we had our careers, we had our children, family, loved ones. Like we had so many other things we were going through. Like we still made it.
Yeah. And we're
And
still making it, and we still have things we deal with every day outside of that we have to think, outside of diabetes. Like right before this call, me and my husband, we have our weekly meeting every Monday at 10 where we're going through what's life looking like this week. And diabetes is not a part of that. But, life goes on. You just have to manage life and you manage your diabetes.
right, don't let diabetes be that mental or physical block that will stop you because we know like this is a second chance at life. We got higher powers that are guiding us and pushing us through we got a support system. We have all of these things. If we call on them, and they show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Call on God and God's always right there to walk beside us. Like people need to know that like there's a power and there's a strength. Diabetes is hard. Diabetes is tough, but it's not the hardest and it's not the toughest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of getting your children tested to see if they had any of the auto antibodies through like TrialNet, which is a free organization?
I thought about it once, even when, as far as we were at a type 1 diabetes walk. They do a walk here every April in Tampa. And at the walk, they have different tables. And I had signed up for them to take the test. And they sent the kit to my house. But then I got nervous, with the information that they collect and that they keep. So I didn't let them take it. But I have thought about it. My oldest, after he graduated high school, we went and got him. Now that he was adult, he had his first like adult checkup. And I wanted him to get blood work just to see where he was, not for type 1, but just, to see where he was. And his blood work came back. His A1C was like a pre-diabetic number. And I'm like, whoo. So I need to get him tested again because I told him, like, this is what you need to eat. This is what, because you're too young to have, have this number. And it wasn't necessarily even for type 1. It's just diabetes, period. So, like, we're going to go get him tested again after, he's did some eating different changes. But as far as type 1, no, I haven't.
So trialnet.org, it's a free organization where it's not like Screen for Type 1 where they keep your information or whatever, but trialnet.org, since you are a person living with type 1 diabetes, you can get everyone in your household tested. Like
Okay.
your children, because it's a direct, they're direct descendants of you. So they can send the kit to you, or you can actually take it into like a lab court, and they will contact you. Is my audio still good?
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because I have a message on my screen. But they will contact you and let you know like what auto antibodies you have, if you have any. And if say like your child, one of your children do have auto antibodies that lead to type 1, today there's a medication called teplizumab, or they call it Tgel now, where you can take and it will prolong the onset of type 1 diabetes. But
Okay.
if you ask me personally, like it's better to know than to be surprised
Yeah.
with type 1, because most people who are surprised with it are in DKA, or they just think that they're going through something else, like something else detrimental to their health. Like a lot of people think they're dying of like cancer or whatnot. So they may like hold off on it. Like, no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want it to mess with my mental. It's better to know than to not. And TrialNet does not share your information. They will not reach out to you over and over again. They'll reach out to you and ask you if you want to be a part of a study.
Okay.
And if you say no, it's fine. But you still know that you have these autoantibody, these markers that will lead to it. And you
Oh,
can
that's
actually,
good to know. If they don't share the information, I will look into it.
yeah,
I
you
don't,
can
yeah.
actually get TrialNet for yourself if you don't know what autoantibodies you have. Like, you can say that this is what I did. I actually said, like, I have someone in my family, like us, just say like a sibling with type 1 diabetes, and they'll send you the kit and you fill it out, whatever. And you already know you have some auto antibodies. You may not know which ones you have.
Antibodies can tell you what other autoimmune disease you might have markers for.
So they'll only test for type 1 auto antibodies.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they'll only test for them. There's 4 different auto antibodies that lead to type 1. If you're high with 1, it's a like a 90% chance. If you have 2, it's 100% chance that you're going to get type 1 diabetes.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. I will definitely look them up and get some kits for my kids.
Great. Is there anything we did not cover in this conversation that you want to cover before we lead out? Because I do have some notes.
Think so. I don't think
Okay.
so.
So the first thing is, again, you being diagnosed at 38 years young, you already knew the trajectory of everything in your life, everything in your career. Look, your kids were in school, learning. You probably were on a board of everything within the school, like going to all the meetings, all of those things, like everything. This diagnosis put a stop to some things where you got to decide, like, what's really important. Do I really need to be at this meeting, or can I just receive the information? Do I really got to lead this focus group, or can I just be a part of the people who move forward with the information? Like, there's so many things that change, even with family, friends, loved ones, even those who love us most. We have had to decide, like, is that argument worth holding on to? Or should we just move forward in growth? Because I'm living with this chronic health condition and things can change and alter within my well being at any given time. So I ain't worried about that. Let's move forward, right? We've had to do those things. You being diagnosed at 38 years young again, how much of a toll did that put on you? Like, knowing as soon as they said you have diabetes.
I mean, it was a big toll. I mean, like I said, it was life changing. And, I just went into research mode, really of trying to heal myself. Like I said, they wanted me to take insulin. Like I wasn't taking insulin before. Now I have to take insulin. Now I have to prick my finger 4 to 6 times a day. Now I have to ask my husband to watch over me while I sleep. So I just went into research mode and tried to heal myself, uh, trying not to eat so I would not take insulin. And I lost a lot of weight because I lost so much weight that people were noticing. You lose like you lose a weight and it wasn't a good like you losing weight, but like you're losing weight, because I wasn't eating because I didn't want to take insulin.
Oh, and because you weren't taking insulin.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was life changing. It was life changing.
Yeah. This diagnosis, many people don't know the true intricacies of it. And with this recording, you're able to now just, instead of, like you said, you got tired of having to keep repeating it to people, repeating it. So this is a gift to you where you can just share a link to someone.
Yeah.
Like, to those who love you most, they'll take the time out to listen to it. Look.
Yeah, I hope they do. And I will say too, after the diagnosis, I went into a depression, not eating and everything. And my husband actually got me a trainer a few months later, and I was nervous because I've always worked out too. Always worked out. I always thought I ate some semi good. I mean, I feel like I'm the best now, but then even I still felt I was, semi healthy, but definitely always worked out. So, but when he gave me a trainer, I was nervous because I'm like, I already lost all this weight and you giving me a trainer, but I lost the weight because I was depressed and, trying to do the things. But the trainer, that was like the best thing. That actually took me out of the depression, and I didn't lose weight, but I got more shapely and in shape. And I think I had him for like 4 months, and my husband trained with us. But like, that just took me out of the depression state. And that was like the best thing he could have did. And it was like, I'll never forget that. Like I was like in a sunken place, and, that just took me out. And it was such a blessing to me. It was such a blessing. What I thought was going to happen with like now I'm going to lose even more but it was just the opposite happened. So.
Yeah. Black man, you are truly appreciated. Your wife has gifted and given you so many flowers during this episode that shares that over the last 21 plus years that you've been her backbone. You've been her strength to continue to being her best. And she's equally been that for you. That bond, that everlasting bond is everything. Just mentally, it helps us push forward, especially those of us living with chronic health conditions, because we know that we're not alone. We need that. We don't ask for it. It just shows up for us. So I must ask you, as we do wind this down, Bernetta, because you had like 2 things in your that I read when you filled out your intake form, and one of them was you have type 1 diabetes for now. For now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I follow research. I follow it like I tell everyone, probably more than 99% of the general population, general public does. And I've seen the research into a functional cure for type 1 diabetes and people that have been able to go and continue living 5, 6 plus years without the need for man-made insulin. Even more recently, over the past year, there's been multiple people that have been able to go without man-made insulin without a need for immunosuppressants. Like, there is a functional cure on the horizon. And on that day, Bernetta, you find out that you've been cured of type 1 diabetes. Like, it's gone. On that day, what do you do?
I'm giving God glory. And I'm telling the world, like I always say, I know when I got diagnosed, they said there is no cure, but That's my prayer. Like, I'll be the miracle. Let me be the miracle, because God is a healer. And what's the point of saying you believe in God, but don't believe in his powers? So, that's my prayer. I speak it every day. I am healed. I am healed. Type 1 diabetes. And the day I'm healed, I will be sharing my story, and I can say I'll be that miracle.
You will be. And on that day, hopefully we can all join forces together and share our story. And then we can go on and help and aid in finding the cure for the next thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I do thank you for allowing me to share my story on here. I hope that look. My sensor going on telling me that I am going low. See, this is a real life. Yeah, see, going low.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to give me something in a second. But see, that's diabetes. You always got to be on. But I do thank you for allowing me to share my story, and I hope that it blesses somebody. I just hope that it blesses somebody and let somebody know that they are not alone. Like, we all have these commonalities in type 1 that we deal with, and that's what makes us strong in the community, and be there for one another to let you know that you're not alone.
We are not alone. On that note, thank you, Bernetta. I truly appreciate you for joining me on this journey that is the Chronically Well podcast, where we have real conversations with community that need to be heard. Because Bernetta, my sister, you are truly someone that needs to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.